Iran claims a missile attack near a U.S. consulate in Iraq. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there and what that could mean now, given what we see already going on in the Ukraine and the talks about what's going on in Taiwan. In other news, an American journalist is killed in the Ukraine, and those of us who remain to be anti-war sit on the edge of our seats wondering, are we going to get pulled into this conflict yet? So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. A lot of Ukraine stuff still, and trying to find that, get that organized and out, plus the fact that with the time change, my body looked at me at 7 and said, nope, you're staying in bed for another 10 minutes. But we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Coronavirus. Albert Bourla says a fourth dose may be needed to protect you from the coronavirus after all. And Amazon relocates its staff from its Seattle office amid rise in violent crime. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. The time change took a toll on everybody. I was in bed until almost 11 yesterday, but I also stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning for the time change, so there was that as well. But we're here. The alarm clock went off at 5, and then at 6, and then at 7, and at 7 I'm like, okay, fine, I'll get up, I'll organize the tabs, and my body said, nope, you're going to sleep for another 10 minutes. So that's where we were at the beginning. I saw the live chat while I was getting the last little bits organized. While I was getting everything else in here. And there's a lot of stuff up on the top. So what are we at? Like 40 tabs? I think 44, 45. So I think we might be up to 50 at this point. I think we were up to 50 and I cut a bunch of stuff because A, it was either no longer relevant, it was older news or stuff like that. But yeah, we still got a bunch of stuff to get organized and stuff to go. And you know, that's the thing with having an ongoing war in a time zone that is 9 hours ahead of us, 10 hours ahead of me, is that while we're all sleeping, all the good stuff is happening over there. So like I go to bed and I'm like, okay, well, you don't have a whole lot of Ukraine stuff. And then I wake up in the next morning and I Google Ukraine and oh shit, we got a bunch of stuff. So that's where we're at. We can't do this in the middle of the week, though. I'm telling you that right off the bat, because then we will have no time to get anything done with work. But we got to get into it, because we got to get done so we can head over and check out the Daily Ignoramus. So let's get into it. But before we get started, make sure you guys go over and check out turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turnsofpagesproductions.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. Once we got started, we are going to be checking out, I set up a planning committee with a lot of the creators that are going to be on the network. So we're going to drive hard into this because this is what we need to do. It's time to break the grip of people who've spent too much time and effort and who make way more than we do, but don't have to make the same decisions that we do. It's time to break their grip and start something new and start something where you're getting your news and commentary from creators who are just like you, who've had to wonder whether it's time to miss a meal or pay a bill. People who struggle, people who have looked at this, people who weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouths. I'm talking to you, Anderson Cooper. So that's what it's time for. That's what we want to do off of that. So go check that out. We're going to carry off the top great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, a new upcoming project that's going to feature Britt, formerly the Freckles and Britt Show, and Sean Hickman, and the Porch Boy. So go check out the channel. And once, in order to help us get started, next month I am actually set up to do a name docs. Those of you in the know, already know what we're going to be doing here. But to make it out public, I'm going to be doing a name docs, and I believe I'm going to be doing so on the Brian Nichols Show, so we can get this out and promote this, because, of course, Give, Send, Go has to have my government name on the front. Again, those of you in the know already know what this is, but yeah, early April, I'm going to be going on Brian Nichols and telling the world what my real name is. So come back and hang out with us for that. Also, brief mention here is Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm just noticing that now. I'm colorblind. I can't tell if this is green or not, but definitely go check that out. Go check out turnsofpagesproductions.com and help out. Let's get into finance for the morning. On the Dow on Friday started up, stayed up throughout most of the day, stayed steady about the previous close throughout most of the day, and then dropped off, sank off a little bit towards the end, coming down to 229.88 points lower, or 0.69%, to 32,944.19. So it looks like futures are heading up right now, but I don't know. If I was in the markets and I heard the news that we heard yesterday morning about the American journalist over there, I would not be in the business of buying stocks right now if I was in the markets. This is, of course, not official financial advice. Always check with your financial advisor to see what is best for you, and we'll see with that. So let's look into this and see. From Bitcoin, Bitcoin is at 38,773.60. That is up 980.2 US dollars, or 2.59% throughout the last 24 hours. A little bit of a jump throughout the last 5 days. Well, it was a drop and then a little bit of a jump back, dropping all the way down to 37,846 over the weekend, but coming back up, holding steady to where it was on Friday, and we'll see what happens with that. We got to look into our scrap metal prices, because that's going to be a little bit more indicative of where the economy is going. Of course, what the producers are buying, whether it be the wartime producers, the shells producers, or your basic automobile manufacturers. Looking in at the prices, copper is up, steel is up, aluminum is up on the average for all three. And looking at the individuals, bare copper wire is, well, all of your copper plays are up, except for brass shells, which are going down. Steel is all in the green right now. Aluminum is a little bit more mixed, of course. Siding is up, aluminum copper fin is down, radiators are down, cans are up, sheet aluminum is down, rims are down, electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is down. Car and truck batteries are up, catalytic converters are all up currently, so I'm guessing that the automotive industry is in full swing right now, looking for those to get recycled and put on other cars. Compressors are up, alternators are up, carbide is up, hard drives are up, motherboards are up, but power supplies, low-grade boards, and PC towers are all down. So that's what we see off of that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures market rally near lows amid Ukraine invasion, looming Fed rate hike, COVID's return. From Ed Carson, Dow Futures and S&P 500 futures paired gained significantly Monday morning, while NASDAQ futures turned lower as a new round of Russia-Ukraine peace talks has gotten underway. Meanwhile, Treasury yields are at new highs, while crude oil prices continue to fall sharply. Man, when you start to see Treasury yields at a new high like that, that's where you're going to start to see your inflation. So we'll see what happens with that. The stock market rally survived last week, but the major indices lost significant ground as Russia's Ukraine invasion continues to roil markets. The Federal Reserve is set to raise interest rates this coming week as we come back up to the top, but they give me an X. The Federal Reserve is set to raise interest rates this coming week with inflation at 40-year high. Finally, COVID cases are once again picking up in much of the world. China is reimposing major lockdowns as it faces significant cases for the first time in 2 years. The time to wrap up market exposure is in a power trend. Right now, the market is in a power outage. The major indices have been below their 21-day and 50-day moving averages for weeks. The 21-day exponential moving average has been well below the 50-day line for a long time, with both falling sharply. All that reflects the recent and extended market weakness despite some brief advances. Dow, Giant, United Health, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals and Harmony Biosciences are showing relatively positive action. All are near buy points or early entries with their relative strength lines at or near highs, but it's no coincidence that all three are medical stocks, relatively insulated from Russia's Ukraine war and soaring inflation. Yeah, okay. Wait till you start seeing people that don't have jobs anymore and tell me how insulated that is from soaring inflation. Two stocks that aren't showing positive action, Apple and Tesla. Apple, which had until recently had held up reasonably well, tumbled 5.2% to 154.73 late last week. It's the worst weekly loss in over a year. Shares settled Friday at their worst close since late November, closing in on the 200-day line. Foxconn on Monday suspended output at its China headquarters in Shenzhen amid the new coronavirus lockdowns. Tesla skidded 5.1% last week to $795.35, with all of that coming on Friday. After hitting resistance at its 21-day line, Tesla tumbled back below its 200-day line late last week, while still comfortably above its late February lows and holding up better than many of its peers. Tesla stock is not doing well. Tesla is still, even though it's not doing well, on the IBD leaderboard. United Health, Regeneron, and Harmony are on the IBD 50. United Health is the subject of the latest New America. On your futures. Dow futures rose 0.7% versus fair value, with a number of financial components helping. S&P were up 0.4%, and NASDAQ sank 0.2%. Those are well off overnight highs, especially on tech futures. Crude oil prices fell 5%, so we'll get some relief at the pump, thankfully. And again, as much as I dislike this administration, I don't care if they bring gas back down to 75 cents a gallon, because that's going to help the American people. And I'll give them credit where credit is due. I just don't think they're going to do that because they'll lose out on their progressive base. There is a level of politics that's still going to be there. If the U.S. ramps up drilling and oil production, there's still going to be a level of politics that says, hey, do whatever you can to regulate this back out of existence to make sure that people aren't going out and buying it because they're doing climate change. So do keep in mind. But again, I'm not going to come out and find a way to complain if the Biden admin does bring gas down to 75 cents a gallon. They're not going to, but I'm not going to complain if they do, because that helps the American people. So with crude oil prices falling 5%, good. That's some relief at the pump. We're still not back to where we were in 2020, but man, that's going to be some relief at the pump. The 10-year Treasury yield jumped 7 basis points to 2.07%, which would top the recent 20-month high set in February. The yield hit 2.1% earlier in the morning. Hong Kong tech stocks continue to plunge with COVID shutdowns, Russia-Ukraine concerns, and delisting fears all weighing on the sector. Tencent Holdings faces a possible record fine from China amid money laundering accusations regarding its WeChat Pay feature, the Wall Street Journal reported. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. I am going to be interested to see where our market goes, because what China does with the coronavirus usually happens over here. And we are just in time to get started and finished with another coronavirus panic right before the midterms. So we'll see what happens. We'll watch and see what happens. There are equal parts of me right now that say that yes, we're going to lock down from coronavirus, and no, there's no way it happens because it's a midterm season. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't practice Santeria. So we'll have to just keep watching this as we go. Let's grab one from CNBC. We'll actually have two from CNBC in a row, one for finance and one for the top story of the day. Dow futures jumped 200 points as investors monitor Russia-Ukraine war, Fed's next move. From Yoon Lee. Dow futures rose Monday to kick off an important week as the Russia-Ukraine war continues to escalate and the Federal Reserve could hike rates for the first time since 2018. Futures on the Dow Industrial Average gained 219 points or 0.7%, while the S&P climbed 0.4%. NASDAQ futures dipped 0.3%, however, as Apple shares fell more than 1% in the pre-market. Fighting has intensified around Ukraine's capital, Kiev, while Russian forces bombarded cities across the country, killing civilians who are unable to escape. The financial fallout of stiff Russian sanctions will come into sharper focus in the coming days ahead of a scheduled sovereign bond payment. Ukraine and Russia resumed peace talks on Monday. A Ukrainian official said the country's objectives were to secure a ceasefire and an immediate withdrawal of Russian troops, along with other security guarantees. Commodity prices, which had been surging recently amid the conflict, cooled off on Monday. U.S. crude slid nearly 6% to 102.83 a barrel, while the international Brent benchmark fell 5.2% to 106.68 a barrel. Gold futures dropped 1.3% to 1959.30 an ounce, while palladium slid 8.8% to 25.50 per ounce. The recent moves in a range of commodity prices are extreme, and if these moves hold for a prolonged period of time, the economic damage would be significant, but we still do not believe in recession needs to be the base outcome, and do not see equities falling from the current levels, JP Morgan strategist Mislav Matechka said in a note. So, I mean, it's interesting to see where this goes. Now, we got up to, at one point, $4.09 a gallon in Janesville, $4.19 in Redacted, where I live, and now I have already seen some stations down to $3.69 in Janesville. Still $3.99 in Redacted, but I actually have to look into a little bit of what's happening locally for us, because I know there's going to be a manipulation of the gas tax. That's one of the things to see, because our governor is up for re-election right now in a very, very contested situation. He has kind of screwed the pooch left and right. And a lot of people in places that aren't Madison and Milwaukee are pissed about what happened with coronavirus lockdown. So there's a lot of stuff moving in my state, but I would not be surprised to see us down below $3 a gallon before November either. No matter what happens with the markets, they will manipulate, they will try to change whatever they can to try to hold our prices down in this state so that Tony Evers can hold on to power forever. But that's what we see off of that. Let's see. Fighting has intensified around Kiev while Russian forces bombard cities across the country, killing, we read that one already. Ukraine and Russia resumed peace talks. We saw that one. Where are we at? There we go. The recent moves in a range of commodity prices are extreme, and this, if these moves hold for a prolonged period of time, the economic damage would be significant, but we still do not believe recession needs to be the base outcome. U.S. Treasury has also sold off, pushing yields sharply higher. The benchmark 10-year yield jumped more than 8 basis points to 2.08%, its highest level since July of 2019. The 2-year rate climbed 7 basis points. I'm thinking that's the 10-year rate, by the way, because the other one was the 2... No, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. The 2-year rate rose to 1.82%. The 10-year is up to 2.8, or 2.08. 1 basis point equals 0.01 percentage points. So that is what we see coming off of that. We'll see what happens, where that goes. Let's get into the big news of the day, starting again with CNBC. Ballistic missiles hit Iraq's Kurdish capital. Iran's Revolutionary Guard claims responsibility. This coming to CNBC via Reuters. Iran's Revolutionary Guard claimed responsibility for a dozen ballistic missiles that struck Iraq's northern Kurdish regional capital of Erbil in early hours of Sunday, Iran state media reported, adding that the attack was against Israeli strategic centers in Erbil. Great. So there's another set of people in this world that think the Jews are the source of all their problems. The missile attack comes as talks revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal faced the prospect of collapse after a last-minute Russia demand forced world powers to pause negotiations for an undetermined time, despite having a largely completed text. The missiles, which targeted the U.S. consulate's new building, caused only material damage and 1 civilian was injured. The Kurdish Interior Ministry said an Iraqi security official told Reuters that the missiles were manufactured in Iran. I would love to know how you know that. Any repetition of attacks by Israel will be met with harsh, decisive, and destructive response, the Revolutionary Guard said in a statement reported by state media. A U.S. official blamed Iran for the attack earlier on Sunday, but did not give further details. Iranian officials have yet to comment. Separately, U.S. State Department spokesperson called it an outrageous attack, but said no Americans were hurt, and there was no damage to U.S. government facilities in Erbil. U.S. forces stationed at Erbil's International Airport complex have, in the past, come under fire from rockets and drone attacks that Washington blames on Iran-aligned militia groups, but no such attacks have occurred for several months. It's premature to point the finger of blame at a specific party, but initial reports show, indisputably, there was a cross-border short-range missile attack, said an Iraqi security official who spoke on condition of anonymity said. Parts of the fired missiles were retrieved, and it was manufactured by Iran, he said. In another sign of increased regional tensions, Iran has also suspended Sunday a fifth round of talks with regional rival Saudi Arabia that were due to take place in Baghdad on Wednesday. The last time ballistic missiles were directed at U.S. forces was in January of 2020, an Iranian retaliation for the U.S. killing earlier this month of its military commander Qasem Soleimani at Baghdad airport. No U.S. personnel were killed in the 2020 attack, but many suffered head injuries. Iran and neighboring Syria are regularly at the scene of violence between the U.S. and Iran. Iran-backed Shiite Islamist militias have attacked U.S. forces in both countries, and Washington has on occasion retaliated with airstrikes. So, it's no coincidence right now. We'll talk about the claiming of responsibility for it, but I don't see this as any coincidence right now. That in the midst of everything that we're seeing going on in Russia, the fact that there is such concerted effort to pull us into Russia, and the fact that Russia is, for the most part, getting away with it right now, it can't be a coincidence that we're also seeing rocket attacks against U.S. forces or U.S.-aligned places in Iran. And really honestly, coming into midterms once again, it does seem like some of this is pre-planned, pre-set up to bring us into these situations because they're looking for a way to get a wartime president. There's a lot of stuff to see there. Let's grab one from the Associated Press. Iran claims missile barrage near U.S. consulate in Iraq. From Qasim Abdul Zara. Iran claimed responsibility Sunday for a missile barrage attack that struck near a sprawling U.S. consulate complex in northern Iraq, saying it was retaliation for the Israeli strike in Syria that killed 2 members of the Revolutionary Guard earlier this week. Iraq's foreign ministry on Sunday summoned Iran's ambassador to protest the attack, calling it a flagrant violation of the country's sovereignty. No injuries were reported on Sunday's attack at the city of Erbil, which marked a significant escalation between the U.S. and Iran. Hostility between the longtime foes has often played out in Iraq, whose government is allied with both countries. The attack drew harsh condemnation from the Iraqi government, which called it a violation of international laws and norms and demanded an explanation from the Iranian leadership. Iraq's foreign ministry spokesman, Ahmad al-Sahaf, told the Associated Press that the ministry summoned the Iranian ambassador, Iraj Mashhedi, to deliver the diplomatic protest. The U.S. strongly condemned the strike, and it was an unjustified attack on civilian residents. Who's saying this? Jake Sullivan. I don't have a Jake Sullivan voice. We will support the government of Iraq in holding Iran accountable, and we will support our partners throughout the Middle East in confronting similar threats from Iran, the White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said in a statement. The U.S. stands behind the full sovereignty and the independence and territorial integrity of Iraq. So, and this is important. No U.S. facilities were damaged or personnel injured. The State Department spokesman, Ned Price, told reporters from Washington the U.S. had no indication the attack was directed at the U.S., he said. And yet, it was pointed toward the consulate in a time where the U.S. is being tested by both the Chinese, who are in a perpetual state of will they won't they over Taiwan, and Russia, who is currently in a country that seems to be allied with the current administration. I don't know what's going to happen right now, but we're getting to the good part, definitely. We'll see what happens with that. Let's move in and let's talk about Russia. And we're going to start with the top story from Russia and Ukraine, the one that's going to pull us into this entire conflict. And we're going to grab one from NPR because they will be all but eager to support this current regime and tell you what it is you need to know. Journalist Brent Renaud is killed while reporting on the war in Ukraine. This is from Lauren Freyer and Joe Hernandez. And remember, NPR needs your money because they need to spread the communist ideals and now the war drum ideals as well across the country. They need to make sure that you are ready, of course, to support the current presidency and get us into this war, because we need to be there, because now they're killing Americans over there. So make sure you donate. Hit that big red button, because NPR needs your money, I mean our money, comrade, to spread their communist ideals around the world. NPR, never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what's going on with this. An advisor to Ukraine's Interior Ministry, Anton Gerashenko, says the U.S. video journalist Brent Renaud had been killed in fighting in Irpin, a suburb of Kiev. Another journalist was wounded, he says. In a statement posted on social media, Gerashenko says Renaud sacrificed his life trying to show the insidiousness, cruelty, and ruthlessness of the aggressor. Holy shit. The propaganda in just that one paragraph. My fucking god. Gerashenko shared the video of an unidentified Ukrainian in camouflage and a police badge announcing Renaud's death. The video shows what looked like Renaud's body on the ground behind him. NPR has not been able to independently confirm the video. Another journalist for U.S. media tweeted that she had been at the scene and witnessed Renaud's body under a blanket. Is this the tweet? Jane Ferguson 5 just left a roadside spot near Irpin where body of American journalist Brent Renaud lay under a blanket. Ukrainian medics could do nothing to help him. By that stage, outraged Ukrainian police officer, tell America, tell the world what they did to a journalist. Yes, tell America what they did to a journalist. Tell the president, tell the Pentagon, tell all the Americans. And this is, by the way, a journalist from PBS and a contributor to The New Yorker. Condolences are flooding in, including from the head of Harvard's Nieman Foundation, where Renaud was a past fellow. Brent's filmmaking was exceptional, and what made it so was not just his abundant skill, but a kindness and deep humanity brought to his work. Nieman curator Anne Marie Lipinski wrote, he told us that what he saw was in his journalism was thoughtful stories about disenfranchised people, and he lived up to that credo every day. His death was a devastating loss. The New York Times also tweeted its condolences, calling Renaud a talented photographer and filmmaker who had contributed to the Times in the past. He was not on assignment for the Times at the time of his death. It said Gerashenko had shared photos of apparently outdated Times press ID with Renaud's name and photo. Renaud and his brother Craig, who is also a filmmaker, had worked on a number of documentaries together. A post on their Facebook page from March 8th indicated that they were covering the conflict in Ukraine. According to their website, the Renaud brothers have spent years telling humanistic, varied stories from the world's hotspots, including Iraq, Afghanistan, Haiti, and parts of Central America. The Committee to Protect Journalists quickly condemned Renaud's killing on Sunday. We are shocked and saddened to learn of the death of U.S. journalist Brent Renaud in Ukraine. This kind of attack is totally unacceptable and is a violation of international law, Carlos Martinez de la Serna, CPJ's program director, said in a statement. Russian forces in Ukraine must stop all violence against journalists and other civilians at once, and whoever killed Renaud should be held to account, he added. Audrey Azoulay, the Director General of UNESCO, said journalists should never be targeted while reporting a conflict. I condemn the killing of Brent Renaud, Azoulay said in a statement. I call on the respect of international humanitarian standards to ensure that journalists and media workers are protected. I don't usually go with a full article, especially for NPR, but do make sure that you donate, because they need our money, comrade, because they're National Progressive Radio, which means they suck with a budget. And they need other people's money to stay up. Oops, did I say that out loud? But there are a lot of moving parts in this story. There's a lot of stuff to pay attention to. There's a lot of stuff to see with this, especially, and a couple tweets that go with this. But the tweet that went with the woman that's before that. But just the outrage. And we all watched Twitter yesterday morning when we all saw this and saw the condolences. Oh my God, journalists are being targeted, which that's been the line since the Trump administration. Oh, he's targeting journalists. Journalists are being targeted. What are we going to do? Journalists are being targeted. I don't know what happened. I know that there's been a lot of propaganda from the beginning of this. There's been a lot of attempt to make you feel a certain way about this. I mean, you look here, you see nice, clean picture of this. You don't see a picture of what happened in Ukraine. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that this man is not dead, that this man is still alive. I will leave that to the Daily Ignoramus. But what I will say, and there is some suspicion on a Substack Twitter account that we'll talk about in just a sec, but I mean, what do we see right here with the woman that's right beside there? Tell America, tell the world what they did to a journalist. And again, there has been a concerted effort from both sides, from both Russia, so they can come out and say, we win against Cold War opponent, and Ukraine because, hey, we can't fight this war on our own. Come on, United States, just give us jets, give us troops, just take care of us, please. Hey, remember what we did for Hunter for all those years? There is a very, very, very concerted effort to come and pull us in here. Here's a question off this. Was it a targeted hit or collateral damage? It was targeted. I watched the interview with surviving journalists. Also note this. Irpin is on the western outskirts of Kiev. I've been reporting for over a week that my assessment is Russian troops are intentionally targeting journalists along the western Kiev axis. But the most important part to this is that there is now a U.S. casualty of this war, which means that the U.S. can come out and say, hey, you're killing ours, man. Let's go in there. Let's show you who's boss. So I'm sitting here and hoping and praying that we don't wind up in this war. I really am, because war is hell. And this is no place for the U.S. This is not our conflict. This never has been our conflict, and again, when two nuclear powers start lobbing nukes at each other, everybody loses. But here is another side of this here from Jordan Schatel. Dossier.substack.com says, it's almost certainty that it was the Ukrainian side that killed former New York Times journalist. Just another botched story. Virtually every press outlet ran with Ukraine's claim that Russians did it, never bothered to verify the claim, just repeated it and published it as fact. The Ukrainians are again attempting to leverage this incident to drag the West into the war. Their entire social media apparatus, including Western-funded NGOs, are using the man who their side killed to advance a narrative. So let's see what is happening with this.
We are not seeking direct confrontation with Russia, though I've been clear that if Russia targets Americans in Ukraine, we will respond forcefully. We are not seeking direct confrontation with Russia, though I've been clear that if Russia targets Americans in Ukraine, we will respond forcefully. We are not seeking direct confrontation with Russia, though I've been clear that if Russia targets Americans in Ukraine, we will respond forcefully.
And I mean, that's the point. And he's, I've been clear, and we will respond forcefully. So, and again, I can't say whether Russia killed this dude or Ukraine did. I can't say either way. But what I can say is that with the intent to bring the U.S. into the war, and again, as was mentioned by the Substack writer, with the mainstream media journalists coming out and running with this story full tilt, it would be awfully convenient, given the fact that Russia has currently surrounded Kiev. It sure would be awfully convenient if they did, if the Ukrainians did kill, or if the guy just died and it was by Russia hands. It'd be awfully convenient, and it would carry a lot of agendas forward if that happened. I don't know. I wasn't over there. I didn't see the shot get fired. There's no apparent video of the shot getting fired. There's none of this sitting out there. And we're in a fog of war situation with a lot of people that want us in this war. So there's something to pay attention to. We'll see what happens. We'll see, hey, they might break in and start doing an announcement today. I might look over at the live chat and say, hey, I see somebody saying there's the announcement going on, and we'll switch over to it. But for now, that's what we're going to take out of that. Let's grab one from the Dissociated Press. Another one, by the way, that's got the warmongers licking their chops, which, I think the warmongers in the U.S. are licking their chops right now. Hey, they killed an American. It's time for us to get in there. It's time for us to get our payment back, or kickback from Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. But we'll grab one here from the Dissociated Press. Russian airstrike hits base in western Ukraine, kills 35. From Uras Karmanow. I love how Whitner kidnap plot trial is up here on the top of this, which, by the way, it's been delayed. I've got a story about that later on in the show. But from Uras Karmanow, waves of Russian missiles pounded military training base close to Ukraine's western border with NATO member Poland, killing 35 people. The strike followed Russian threats to target foreign weapon shipments that are helping Ukrainian fighters defend their country against Russia's grinding invasion. More than 30 Russian cruise missiles targeted the sprawling training facility that's less than 25 kilometers or 15 miles from the closest border point with Poland, according to the governor of Ukraine's western Lviv region. Poland is a key location for routing Western military aid to Ukraine. And Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken and George W. Bush and what's left of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all the other warmongers in Congress are sitting here saying, come on, just a little bit closer. All you got to do is get the blast radius an inch within Poland. And we can go in there because we will be leading NATO. And we will get our war. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, Lviv has largely been spared the scale of destruction unfolding further east and become a destination for residents escaping bombarded cities and for many of the nearly 2.6 million refugees who have fled the country. The training center in Yavoriv appears to be the most westward target struck so far in the 18-day invasion. The facility, also known as the International Peacekeeping and Security Center, has long been used to train Ukrainian military personnel, often with instructors from the US and other NATO countries. Which, there again, we're sitting out here. And this is a missile barrage in a place where there might be United States personnel. This is getting awfully convenient, again, to both sides of war who are eager to have U.S. military might in the Ukraine. But again, we're sitting at the situation where it's, come on, just a few kilometers closer, just an inch into Poland, and you've attacked a NATO country. Just 1 inch, that's all we ask. From the Blaze. Russia is requesting that China provide support for the ongoing invasion. From Samuel Mangold Leonard. Russia asks China for assistance in its ongoing invasion of the Ukraine, U.S. officials warn. The New York Times, a former newspaper, reported that Russian officials sought military equipment and support from their Chinese counterparts as the invasion of Ukraine, launched last month by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, continues. Russian leaders also sought economic assistance from China to help lessen the burden of sanctions issued by Western nations that have devastated the Russian economy. American officials declined to describe the specific hardware requested by the Russian government. Jake Sullivan, President Brandon's national security advisor, said that China will absolutely face consequences if it chooses to support the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Fox News reported. Sullivan said, "We believe China, in fact, was aware of before the invasion took place that Putin was planning something. They may not have known the full extent of it because it's very possible Putin lied to them the same way he lied to Europeans and others. We are also watching closely to see the extent to which China actually does provide any form of support, material support or economic support to Russia. He went on to say, I'm not just going to sit here publicly and brandish threats, but what I will tell you is that we are communicating directly, privately to Beijing, and there will be absolutely consequences for large-scale sanctions, evasion efforts, or support to Russia to backfill them. We will not allow that to go forward and allow there to be a lifeline to Russia from these economic sanctions from any country anywhere in the world. And yet you think that you're going to be able to stop it. No, I'm dead serious. If, for whatever reason, China decides to bankroll Russia for what they're doing, perhaps in a quid pro quo, to come back around and get Russia to throw naval support back out to Taiwan, or anything else that they could possibly do in the region. I mean, if you do think about it, Russia has been the military might of everything, but they don't have the financial aspect to do that. China has been bankrolling them forever. So none of this is new, but it sounds like Russia is going back and asking for more. And Sullivan's saying, you better not. So we'll see what happens with that. From NBC. American veterans join Ukrainian resistance. We're here to help the people. There's a group of Americans, all veterans, out here to help in any way we can, said Lane Perkins, a former Navy boatswain mate. And then, yeah, we've got the mayoral kidnapping as well. Actually, I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to pause this. We're going to hold on to this because we'll come back and watch this if there's no video. When we talk about the mayoral kidnapping here. This is from Mo Abbas. A gas station on the rural outskirts of Lviv in western Ukraine may be an unlikely place to encounter two former U.S. servicemen from San Diego, but for a nation under siege and on the move, such stations have turned surprisingly colorful and cosmopolitan places. As Ukrainian soldiers in uniform rubbed shoulders with mothers bouncing babies on their hips, an ersatz food truck loaded with donations filled up, and children chased errant pets. You can also bump into foreigners who have volunteered to support the Ukrainians as they fight the Russian invasion, including two former U.S. servicemen from San Diego. We're here to help the people. There's a group of Americans, all veterans, out there who want to help any way that we can. Lane Perkins, 26, a former Navy boatswain mate, told NBC News on Tuesday. Perkins, who used to handle naval aircraft, said hundreds of American veterans had poured into Ukraine to do humanitarian work or assist the country's military in its battle against Russian forces. We're basically out here exploring all the different options people have and kind of relaying that information to a larger group so that everyone can get funneled into the spot that fits them right, he said. Ukraine has appealed to foreigners to join its resistance against Russia's onslaught and is setting up an international legion. Anyone who wants to join the defense of Ukraine, Europe, against the world can come and fight side by side with Ukrainians against the Russian war criminals, Volodymyr Zelensky said on February 27th, days after the invasion began. Perkins at the Lviv gas station, with fellow ex-Navy servicemen who gave his name only as Hector, said that he had not signed up for the International Legion because it would require him to volunteer for a set period of time, and he preferred to be flexible. Now, I'm going to come at this from two sides. Again, with the fact that Lviv is being targeted at this point and Russian forces are moving westward towards that because of the training facility, I think this is extremely dangerous, especially with a war apparatus in this country that desperately wants to go into a war. With a war apparatus here that desperately wants to go back in here and any excuse to go in to this region, the killing of yet another American, especially an American serviceman, could be the killing that launches 1,000 ships. That's one side of this. However, these servicemen are doing charity work, essentially, outside of government intervention. They're coming in. It's private charity is what it is. And with that having been said, that's what I've been preaching since the beginning of the pandemic, when they started saying we need to go print more money to give away more money because people are starving, people are hurting, and private charity stepped up. So on the one hand, I think that this shouldn't be, because you're just asking to get another serviceman killed and getting the U.S. involved in this war. But on the other side of it, they're doing private charity, which is the crux of human existence. If I knew how the U.S. would react, if worse should come to worse in something like this, I would be very, very in favor of this. But unfortunately, I've seen the salivating, the warmongering of people who support the Brandon admin, and I kind of know where this ends. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from the New York Post. Russian forces install new Melitopol mayor after abducting Ivan Fedorov. And perfectly, there enough. Let's go listen to what it is that Zelensky has to say. Where's my volume control? There it is.
Мера, який сьогодні у Мелітополі
Ukraine's President
окупанти
Volodymyr
захопили
Zelensky
мера міста Івана
accused occupying Russian forces of kidnapping a mayor who has bravely defended Ukraine and the people in his community. It's clear that this is a sign of weakness in the invaders. They didn't receive any support on our land, though it really counted on it. Because for years they lied to themselves that the people in Ukraine are waiting for Russia. They didn't find any collaborators who forfeited their cities and authorities to help the occupiers. That's why they have transitioned onto a new stage of terror, in which to try to physically liquidate representatives of Ukraine's lawful local authorities. The kidnapping of Melitopol's mayor isn't just a crime against an individual person or a specific society or against Ukraine, it's a crime against democracy as a whole. I assure you, 100% of people in all democratic countries will learn about this. And the actions of the Russian invaders will be equated to the actions of ISIS terrorists. That was a propagandistic line right there. This will be the same as ISIS terrorists. Shut up, you. Nobody wants to hear from you. Russian forces install new Melitopol mayor after abducting Ivan Fedorov. So the first thing, what do we always do when we talk about regions over there? Because our libertarian friends tell us that we can't talk about places if we don't know where they are. So just point to where it is on the map and then we'll go talk about it. So let's go find out where Melitopol is. All right, there's the map of Melitopol. So this is in the southeast region, in the sea of near the Sea of Azov. Somewhere just outside of the looks like the Donetsk region. But close to the Crimea. So someplace that's very much surrounded at a point of this. But that's where we see off of that. Far, far away from Lviv, where most of the action is taking place right now. But apparently, allegedly, officially captured from the New York Post. Russian forces install a new Melitopol mayor after abducting Ivan Fedorov from Mary Kay Ling. Russian military forces have installed a new mayor of the embattled city of Melitopol one day after its elected mayor was kidnapped by a group of 10 Russian soldiers. Galina Chenko, a former member of the city council, was proclaimed the acting mayor on a local TV Saturday, CNN reported. Mayor Ivan Fedorov was taken from Melitopol's crisis center Friday with a plastic bag over his head after he refused to cooperate with the enemy, Ukraine's parliament said. More than 2,000 residents of the Russian-occupied city in the Kremlin-backed rebel region of Luhansk staged a rally to support Fedorov Saturday, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky demanded his immediate release. But in a televised statement, Donalchenko said that she aimed to get that city back to normal and warned against those who would provoke a reaction of bad behavior. "I ask you to keep wits about you and not give in to provocation," she said. Acting mayor claims that protesters will be punished in Melitopol. CCTV footage shows Russian soldiers arresting Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorov. Fedorov reportedly refused to cooperate with Russian forces, according to Ukraine's parliament. So, and I mean, yeah, exactly. If Russia has been in there, if they've captured the mayor and installed basically a puppet mayor, that means that this city has been taken. Now, as far as what this does to the rest of the region, I don't know if that means that the rest of the region is taken, if that's officially annexed at this point, but as of right now, the city is taken. Let's grab another one here from NPR for us. Biden moves to revoke Russia's trade relations status amid war in Ukraine. And this is from Alana Wise. And remember, hit that donate button because NPR still needs our money, comrade, to tell stories like this. President Biden on Friday announced that he will work with Congress on legislation to revoke Russia's permanent normal trade relations status because of its invasion of Ukraine. That would mean that Russia would be one of only 3 countries to not have normal trade relations with the U.S. The other 2 are Cuba and North Korea, and would allow for significantly higher duties on the imports of Russian goods. Putin is the aggressor, and he is the aggressor, and Putin must pay the price, Biden said of Russian President Vladimir Putin. I saw an interesting tweet before I went live here today, pointing out the fact, for good reason, of course, that for most journalists it would actually be shorter, quicker, and easier to talk about the things that Biden doesn't blame on Putin rather than what he does blame on Putin. Biden announced that the U.S. was also banning import of certain Russian goods like seafood, vodka, and diamonds, which the White House said was worth more than $1 billion a year to Russia, and banned U.S. exports of watches, luxury vehicles, high-end clothing, alcohol, jewelry, and other high-end goods to Russia, trade worth about $550 million a year. So luxury vehicles, no, we're not sending luxury vehicles over there, but you can still go over there and buy a Chevy Sonic in Russia. We're showing our strength, and we'll not falter. Yeah, Biden, that's what you're showing, is strength. The move comes as the G7 and European Union take similar moves to revoke Russia's most favored nation status. Canada revoked the status for Russia last week. So that's what we see off of that. From the Associated Press, talks to resume as Russia pressures Ukrainian capital of Kiev. From Uras Karmanow, Kyiv! Russia's military forces kept their punishing campaign to capture Ukraine's capital with fighting and artillery fire in Kiev's suburbs on Monday after an airstrike on military bases near the Polish border brought the war dangerously close to NATO's doorstep. As Russian munitions pounded Ukraine for the 19th day, a new round of talks between Russia and Ukrainian officials raised hopes for progress in evacuating civilians from besieged Ukrainian cities and getting emergency supplies to areas without enough food, water, and medicine. Air raid alerts sounded in cities and towns all around the country overnight. From near the Russian border in the east to the Carpathian Mountains in the west was fighting continued on the outskirts of Kiev. Ukrainian officials said Russian forces shelled several suburbs of the capital, a major political and strategic target for their invasion. Well, yeah, pretty much once the capital falls, the war is over. Ukrainian authorities said that 2 people died and 7 were injured after Russian forces struck an airplane factory in Kiev, sparking a large fire. The Antonov factory is Ukraine's largest aircraft manufacturing plant and is best known for producing many of the world's biggest cargo planes. Artillery fire also hit in a 9-story apartment building in the northern Obolonsky district of the city, killing 2 more people. Authorities said firefighters worked to rescue survivors, painstakingly carrying an injured woman on a stretcher away from the blackened and still smoking building. The town councilor for Brovary, east of Kiev, was killed in fighting there, officials said. Shells also fell in the Kiev suburbs of Irpin, Bucha, and Hostomel, which have seen some of the worst fighting in Russia's stalled attempts to take the capital, local officials said. Look, at some point here, you're surrounded. You've got Belarus to the north, providing your north flank, and you've got Russians on the other 3 sides of you. Belarus allied with Russia. At what point, and I know that there's Ukraine fatigue in the news media. I know that there's that. I'm feeling it. I know that there's some people out there that are actually getting their entire fix off of it, of course, too, but there is some Ukraine fatigue that's going on here. But with that having been said, I mean, do you keep fighting in the capital until every last man is dead? Or do you just let it go because there's no out for you at this point? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to this. But we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. The talks have resumed, but they're mostly talks about getting civilians out, not necessarily coming in and saying, okay, war is over. You win or you lose. All right, let's listen to Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi, this was a remarkable few days because it was for the people, but it was Slava Ukraina. It was about Ukrainia.
Again, this was a remarkable few days because it was for the people, but it was Slava Ukraina. It was about Ukrainia. It just, Mike McFall, others here have talked. Again, this was a remarkable few days because it was for the people, but it was Slava Ukraina. It was about Ukrainia. It just.
Did anybody get that? Ukraine! Huh? Maybe time to lay off the wine, Auntie Nancy. Lindsey Graham got into the news because, well, you know why he got in the news. Lindsey Graham. A general would shoot Putin in the head if he ordered a strike on the U.S., sugar. From Ryan Saavedra. Lindsey Graham issued a striking remark during an interview on Sunday about Russian President Vladimir Putin while talking about the possibility of a war in Ukraine breaking out into a full-scale world war. Well, sugar, it's not going to be about World War III. This is all a bluff. Graham said during a Fox News interview in which he licked his chops and thought about what could actually happen in World War III and how much money he could get off defense contractors while he's sitting in the congressional bunker and all the little people have to face down what the world is doing. Putin knows that no one wins a nuclear exchange. If he ordered a strike on the U.S., a general would shoot him in the head. I want to shoot a man in the head. I'm telling you right now. Kneel down over him and shoot him in the head. Ooh. The remarks from Graham come after he has repeatedly called for Russian people to assassinate Putin for the good of their own country. I'm begging you, sugar, in Russia, you need to step up to the plate and take this guy out, Graham said in a Fox News interview during the first week in March, later adding in a subsequent interview, you need to take this guy out by any means possible, and trust me, sugar, I know about taking a guy out. I can tell you stories, okay? Dude, I'm telling you right now, if somebody said this about somebody over here, we would already be occupying that country. There wouldn't be a stop or a slowdown if somebody in another country called for an assassination of the President of the United States, especially this president. I know a lot of people in this country called for the assassination of the former president, but, you know, double standards and all. Graham was slammed by members of his own party over the remarks, including from Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was a plant. But he's going to keep calling for war, because he needs it. Yeah, let's listen to Kamala. Kamala is on the northern flank of the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank with our NATO allies, and what's at stake at this very moment. Let's listen.
I am here, standing here on the northern flank, on the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank and our NATO allies, and what is at stake at this very moment. I am here, standing here on the northern flank, on the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank and our NATO allies, and what is at stake at this very moment. I am here, standing here on the northern flank, on the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank and our NATO allies, and what is at stake at this very moment.
And what is at stake at this very moment? The northern flank, the eastern flank. I mean, does Russia come out and invade another country now because you were there? I don't know, but we'll see what happens with that. Ursula von der Leyen put a tweet out as well, which again, I'm sitting here waiting for the escalation to jump up. Because the Ukraine has applied to enter the EU. Ursula von der Leyen tweets out, Ukraine's membership application is expression of their will and their right to choose their own destiny. Today we have open pathway towards us for Ukraine. They are part of European family. So great. The EU wants to come back in and bring Ukraine in off of this, which, again, as far as the EU goes, I'm less opposed to that because then they can come in and one currency if they want to. That's a free market thing, and apparently Ukraine wants to, but that's also the next step towards NATO membership, and NATO membership seems to be, according to the propaganda, at the heart of this entire thing. So we'll see what happens with that. From CNN. Russia opens criminal case against Meta following temporary hate speech policy change. Yeah, you knew that was going to happen. From Claire Duffy. Let's listen to unreliable sources for just a second.
Over the weekend, Russian media regulators saying they're blocking Facebook. Users there are now seeing a message that says this site cannot be reached when trying to log on to the world's most popular social media platform. However, there is no mention of Instagram or WhatsApp being banned. Those are reportedly actually more popular in the country than Facebook, and they're all owned by Facebook's parent company, Meta. We know about restrictions against Twitter and other social media apps as well as, of course, blocks against many news websites. So there is this digital wall for information trying to get into Russia, and it is affecting Facebook and its parent company, Meta. Joining me now, Meta Vice President of Social Impact, Emily Dalton-Smith. Emily, thanks for coming on the program. Do you have any updates about Instagram or WhatsApp being blocked inside Russia?
Well, thanks for having me, Brian. It's an evolving situation, so we're watching with everyone else. But the thing that's most important to know is that we're doing everything we can to restore our services and make sure that all of our services, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, remain available for people to safely and securely express themselves, to stay in touch with their friends and family, and really to make sure that their voices are heard, that they're getting the information they need. So we're doing everything we can, and we'll keep doing that.
So it is certainly in your company's interest to have people be able to access these platforms, both in Russia and Ukraine. Meta announced $15 million in aid, some of it actually going to journalists in Ukraine. Tell us about that.
Well, we've committed $15 million in donations.
And of course, I mean, Zuckerberg is sitting out here thinking to himself, what do? I'm missing information from people. I need data to survive. Please launch Meta back in Russia. I need data to survive. Look, when you come back out here and you allow people to come in and call for direct violence against Russians as part of your terms of service, what do you think they're going to do? I'm actually a little surprised that they didn't take WhatsApp and Instagram down as well, because that the policy, when we talked about that, when the policy first went into place, is that does stretch across all of Zuckerberg's subsidiaries. But they have opened a criminal case, so let's see what's happening here. Russia's investigative committee has opened a criminal case against Facebook parent company Meta Platforms, accusing the company's employees of illegal calls for murder and violence against Russian citizens, according to a statement the committee published on Friday. The case follows a temporary change to Meta's hate speech policy that allows some Facebook and Instagram users to express violent sentiments against Russian armed forces invading Ukraine. Reuters first reported the policy change on Thursday. A criminal case has been initiated with main investigation department of Russian Investigative Committee in connection with the illegal calls for murder and violence against citizens of Russian Federation by employees of American company Meta, which owns social media news network Facebook and Instagram, the investigative committee's statements said, citing the policy change. These actions contain signs of crimes under Articles 280 and 205.1 of Criminal Code of Russian Federation. Public calls for extremist activities, assistance to terrorist activities, the statement read. Yeah, how much was organized on Facebook when it went to the St. George and the St. Jacob riots, I wonder? Even though that wouldn't be for the Russian Federation. Meta did not immediately respond to a request for comment from CNN's Business regarding Russia's criminal investigation. However, in a statement Thursday, the company noted that the policy change does not allow for calls against violence against Russians outside the context of the Ukrainian invasion. And from what I understand about the change, and I've seen the terms of service, from what I understand about the change, you can come out and you can get on Facebook and Instagram and say, death to the Russians, death to the horrifying invaders, death to this, death to that. But you can't come out and say, I want somebody to go out and kill Ivanov. Or Vladimir, or something like that. Like, you can't go in and talk about the direct assassination or killing or targeted threats against an individual person, but you can now do it as a group, which sounds like you're opening a very, very, very big door for ethnonets to get involved with everything. But, you know, I'm not the owner of a billion-dollar company that thrives on eating data from other people. But that's what we say off of that. Instagram's users in Russia are told service will cease from midnight, from Reuters. So, as we just saw in the CNN article, Facebook is the only one that's currently down in Russia, but it looks like Instagram will soon be following yesterday, last night. Instagram users in Russia have been notified that the service will cease from midnight on Sunday after its owner Meta Platforms said last week it will allow social media users in Ukraine to post messages such as death to the Russian invaders. An email message from the state communications regulator told people to move their photos and videos from Instagram before it was shut down and encouraged them to switch to Russia's own competitive internet platforms. So, WhatsApp probably still going, which I was in a Discord call talking about a guy buying Nissan parts through WhatsApp from a guy in Russia. From far, far eastern Russia, but still a guy in Russia. And they love WhatsApp in Russia. So, Zuckerberg will still get his data fix, but not in the same way that he was getting it before. Let's grab one from NBC. Ukraine dents America first thinking deep in the heart of Trump country. This will be interesting. From Henry J. Gomez. Here, in the middle of former President Trump's Midwest base, in a state where sense of economic malaise lands hard on rural and working class voters, many Republicans see higher gas prices as a small price to pay to help defend Ukraine. No, I guarantee you they do not. I don't think we're doing enough, said Mary King, an unemployed caregiver, said of President Biden's ban of Russian oil last week. She spoke while waiting for GOP Senate candidate J.D. Vance to hold a campaign event in the industrial city along the Ohio River. Ask the public what they're willing to sacrifice, King added. I pray every day to St. Nicholas to save the children in Ukraine who are in danger. The sentiment was much of the same upstate in Strongsville, a solidly Republican suburb of Cleveland that has one of the largest Ukrainian populations in Ohio. It's not going to cripple us, said Bob Heinley, a retired cardiac tech, said at the higher gas prices likely to result from the ban, speaking after Vance finished a town hall forum there. I invest in things that are important to me. King and Heinley, among more than a dozen Ohio Republicans interviewed about the U.S. response to Russia's war against Ukraine, described themselves as loyal Trump voters. Yeah, okay. Their comments represent departure from the American First mindset that helped Trump easily win the state twice. So you're telling me that an NBC reporter went to Ohio and talked to Trump voters and they were so eager and so glad to talk to NBC reporters? Are you serious? Because I don't believe you. I do not believe you. But they're going to keep trying to put this down to you to make you feel bad for complaining about higher gas prices. Look, here is the reality. As I've said before, fuel and energy are the keystone to the rest of the economy because you still need to get goods from the other part of the world, from the port, from the factory, to the shelf, where you can go buy them and bring them back. And the more fuel it costs to get them there, the more it's going to make that price go up, the more that's going to be factored into the cost. But yes, go tell me more about how low information voters in Ohio, who again are willingly talking to NBC, are willing to go out and pay more because we're sticking it to Russia. From the BBC, how to spot false posts from Ukraine, from Mariana Spring. Yeah, this will be interesting. Specialist disinformation reporter. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has triggered a wave of falsehoods on social media and the airwaves. In a Radio 4 podcast series, War on Truth, our specialist reporter follows the stories of people caught up by misinformation and gives some tips on how to avoid it. Since the war began, my inbox has been flooded with messages from people telling me about misleading videos on their social media feeds and troll accounts promoting conspiracy theories. And it's not just on social media, it's also state-sponsored propaganda pushing false claims on air and beyond. In a new podcast series, I'll be reporting on the information battle being waged over Ukraine and hearing it from ordinary people sucked into it. How can you spot bad information and stop its spread? Number 1, watch for old and misleading videos. There are very real, distressing videos being shared of what's happening on the ground in Ukraine, but there's also footage from old conflicts going viral. Often people share it because they're shocked or even trying to help, but it's just adding to the chaos in that country. Look, it's an old video! The armed forces of Ukraine released a video with the destruction of the Russian military equipment. Bayraktar TB2 video 18+. Number 2, who's sharing it? Why? Hey, the people who aren't going along with the narrative are sharing a video. It must not be true. Number 3, pause before you share. Only spread what we tell you to. There you go. 3 ways to Take in the propaganda. Oh, I mean, not take in the propaganda. 3 ways to make sure that you don't spread disinformation. From the New York Post. Holy shit, we only got a couple more left. Then we talk about other stuff. White House enlists TikTokers in messaging war with Russia. From Callie Pattison. TikTok isn't just for dances anymore. The White House briefed 30 high-profile creators on the popular app Thursday without key details of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Washington Post reported. According to the outlet, the briefing took place over Zoom and was led by White House Press Secretary, red-haired bobblehead, and National Security Council Special Communications Advisor, Matt Miller. The topics reportedly broached included America's strategic goals in eastern Ukraine, how the U.S. would respond to nuclear escalation by Russia, and how millions of dollars in aid were being distributed to Ukrainians affected by the war. Since Putin's attack on Ukraine began February 24th, TikTok users in Russia and Ukraine have continuously posted videos showing aftermath of bombings and the effects of economic sanctions. At one point in the briefing, White House Director of Digital Strategy, Rob Flaherty, noted that the Biden admin recognized that TikTok is a critically important avenue for much of the American public, especially the Gen Z, to find out about the news. Yeah, I don't have TikTok, so I don't know who any of these people are most likely. So we wanted to make sure that you had the latest information from an authoritative source, Flaherty added, according to the Washington Post. Several of the TikTok creators who attended Thursday's meeting have since posted videos ranging from 30 seconds to 3 minutes in length on information they learned from the White House, including the Biden admin's refusal to impose no-fly zones over Ukraine and failing Russian troop morale. Those videos have since garnered hundreds of thousands of views. Well, the first one of those, that they say, is actually probably the best idea the Brandon admin has, but the second part of it, that is failing Russian troop morale, yeah, that is puristic propaganda. Which, coming out of this admin, I'm not surprised by anymore. I'm not surprised by a whole lot of anything anymore. I really am not. Because they're going to keep trying to tell you that you're wrong and it's your fault. But yes, they can come back and have TikTok over it. Can we watch this? Can this actually happen? Maybe. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Apparently it's not. Can we do it like this? Nope. Apparently not. So apparently we can't do this. I don't know, Gen Z for change. Alright, the last one that we will do here comes to us from the Daily Beast. We have the proof. We have all the proof that we need that Tulsi actually was a Russian agent. Sorry, libertarians. She actually was a Russian agent. Accused Russian agent gave to one politician, Tulsi Gabbard. From Ryan Sullenberger and Shanna Vabra. Sorry, guys. Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii and 2020 presidential dark horse candidate, has long perplexed U.S. officials and observers with her seemingly inexplicable pro-Russian positions. And a new development this week is sure to reinforce pro-Russian position. She doesn't want there to be war over there. She doesn't want the U.S. involved in it. And pointing out the fact that the U.S. wants to get involved in it is, I wouldn't call that a pro-Russian position. And a new development this week is to reinforce the half-jokes that Gabbard is a Russian asset. As it turns out, her campaign took money from one. The agent, dual Russian-American national Elena Branson, also known as Elena Chernik, stands accused of illegally pushing pro-Russian policies in the U.S. for nearly a decade, at the direction of top Kremlin officials without registering under Foreign Agents Registration Act. According to a criminal complaint federal prosecutors filed this week in the Southern District of New York. But in all her time lobbying for Russian goals, she gave money to just one federal candidate, Gabbard. Wait, what's this? She only gave $59.95 to Gabbard? And you had to go 5 paragraphs in to find that out? That this is a complete non-story? While the combined total of those donations isn't colossal by any means, a whopping $59.95, they do raise the question about why the alleged Russian agent tasked with currying favor with U.S. politicians would zero in on Gabbard, and only Gabbard. For $60, you say? For $60. There you go. That's all it takes to buy off a politician. $60. All right. And with that, we're going to move on off the Ukraine stuff. A lot of stuff that moved there, a lot of stuff that shook. Let's come back and let's talk about what's happening over in the rest of the world, starting with NBC5 Chicago. Smollett sentenced to jail, probation for lying to police in staged hate crime. Dude, all right. I got to tell you this. I actually feel bad. I think that this is differential treatment. And there is sure to be a problem with Smollett in prison. Do you know why? Do you realize the gravity of what's going on here with Jussie Smollett? The city and the county have done such an egregious violation to Jussie Smollett's civil rights. They're locking him up with his attacker. All right, let's read. After an emotional day of testimony on both sides, actor Jussie Smollett has been sentenced to 150 days in jail in connection to a staged hate crime that occurred in Chicago in January of 2019. Smollett will begin his sentence immediately. He was ordered to pay more than $120,000 in restitution to the city of Chicago and was fined $25,000. Smollett was convicted of lying to police and about the staged attack, which he hired 2 brothers to help him undertake near his Streeterville apartment. Judge James Lynn issued his ruling on Thursday, saying the incident's extreme premeditation was an aggravating factor in the case. He said that he believes Smollett orchestrated the attack to an exacting degree, rehearsing it extensively. "You turned your life upside down," Lynn said. "You destroyed your life as you know it. There's nothing that you can do today that will come close to the damage you've done to your own life." Realistically, when we look into this, when we see what's happening with this, I don't necessarily care so much about the Smollett thing anymore. I know that we were in just about to come into a season of hate crimes. So-called, of course, not actual hate crimes, but we were about to come into a season where that was the top story of everything, is that everything was a hate crime and that Whitey was trying to eliminate the black race off the planet. But realistically, I think that he should have got more. Not necessarily because the crime was really that bad, but because he was coming out of this with an agenda. He wanted to spark and start more controversy. More war among people, more fighting among brothers, among sisters, among families, among friends, who didn't quite agree on this entire thing. And people, by the way, who still believe that this actually happened, that this was real. In spite of the conviction, they still believe that he was actually taken down by white MAGA hat wearers on the coldest day of the year in January of 2019. They still believe this. So, enjoy your jail time, Smollett. This one comes to us from Twitchy, from Sam J, who is Politabunny over on Twitter. And it's the only reason I take from Twitchy, because if I trust the writer, which this one I particularly trust. 5-alarm fire for the Democratic Party. Wall Street Journal poll looks even worse for Democrats, with big changes in Hispanic and Black support. Earlier today, we told you about the Wall Street Journal that has Republicans leading Democrats on everything but COVID. Yeah, well, it gets much, much worse from our donkey mascot friends. So this is something Democrats can blame on Putin. I'm sorry, so is this something Democrats can blame on Putin? Asking for a friend. Tom Bevan tweets out, this is a 5-alarm fire for the Democratic Party. Let's grab this tweet here. The survey also found Republicans making gains among minority groups by 9 percentage points. Hispanic voters in the new poll said they would back a Republican candidate for Congress over a Democrat. The two parties had been tied among Hispanic voters in the Journal's survey in November. Democratic margins have eroded among black voters who favored a Democrat for Congress by 35 percentage points in the new survey, down from 56 points in November. Support for a Republican candidate rose to 27% among black voters, up from 12% in November. Reading on. Wow, we'd suggest sending this to Biden, but we're not even sure he realizes he's president and not a senator. Better yet, let's send it to Obama since this is technically his third term anyway. Oof. That was dark. So, that's what they say. And really, honestly, those are the things. Because for my entire life, the black vote, the Hispanic vote, that's been a given. And Democrats have called it a given. They act like they know that Hispanics are going to vote for them in droves, number after number, no matter what. No matter how bad they fuck up, they can count on these two votes. And yet, as they continue to push the transgender ideology, and the ideology is out there in the black community, that homosexuality and transgenderism are just a way for the white man to convince the black man not to breed. These are things that are actually been said among black nationalists. And now you're going to push more homosexuality and more transgenderism in that community and hold on to that community? No, I don't think so. And the Hispanic community. Oh, you, third generation Hispanic, you have to vote for us because otherwise the evil Republicans will send you back. Meanwhile, this is a guy who's sitting here, three generations removed from the person who actually did jump the border illegally, but now is a U.S. citizen, owns several businesses, and is in the upper middle class. Yeah, that's not going to play well either. But, hey, just keep trying to treat him like that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. We've got some video to go with this. I'm sick of this stuff! Biden complains that the American people believe increased government spending causes inflation. On Friday, President Biden vented his frustrations at the 2022 House Democratic Caucus Issues Conference in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, giving a wide-ranging speech on current political affairs during his remarks. Before the Democratic members of Congress, Biden bemoaned that the American people think more government spending causes inflation. Let's listen.
So I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
Well, right. It's because you're spending more money without having a balanced way to bring more money in. Because you don't produce anything, you just take it from the American people or print it. Technically, he's right. It's not true. The spending isn't what's causing the inflation. It's the spending in an unsupported way. Because you haven't found a way to tell us how you're going to get all that money without taxing the lower class out of existence. Biden has previously claimed that he was the first president to lower the deficit by $1 trillion, most notably in his State of the Union address early in March. Yet, as explained by the Wall Street Journal, that embellishment is one for the ages, noting that he was ignoring potential spending bills and pinko pox relief funds that he wanted to pass during his first year in office. So, he's sick of it. He's sick of you believing the truth. He just wants you to believe the propaganda. From the Associated Press, COVID news. China locks down city of 9 million amid new spike in cases. No author given. China on Friday ordered a lockdown of the 9 million residents of the northeastern city of Changchun amid a new spike in pinkopox cases in the area attributed to the highly contagious Warmonger variant. Residents are required to remain at home, with one family member permitted to venture out to buy food and other necessities every 2 days. All residents must undergo 3 rounds of mass testing, while non-essential businesses must have been closed and transport links suspended. The latest lockdown, which also includes Yuchang with 500,000 people in the eastern province of Shandong, showed China sticking to the draconian approach to the pandemic it enforced for most of the past 2 years, despite some earlier indications that authorities would be implementing more targeted measures. China reported another 397 cases of local transmission nationwide on Friday, 98 of them in Jilin, a province that surrounds Changchun, a center of the country's auto industry. In the entire province, cases have exceeded 1,100 since the latest outbreak first struck late last week. And again, I don't know where this is going to go over here in this country, because it would be extremely politically unpopular coming into a midterm election to lock this country down again. In the midst of a war, in the midst of a war effort, and in the midst of trying to convince the US people to go in and defend their betters over in the Ukraine. A country that most of them couldn't find on a map until a week ago. This is not going to go over well over here, but the other side of this is if China's coming out and doing it, there's going to be a faction, a division of the Democrat Party that demands that we just lock down, take everything away, and let the government take care of the people again. So that's what we see coming out of China. Pfizer had the audacity to show their fucking faces again after everything that it is that they did. Pfizer CEO says 4th dose of COVID-19 vaccine will be needed. Yeah, I don't believe anything that you have to say anymore because the papers came out. I haven't even looked at the papers. I haven't read the papers because of all the Ukraine stuff that's been distracting from it. But if anybody can provide me a link to the Pfizer papers, I would love to see them. I really would. The head of Pfizer says Americans will need a 4th dose of the pinkopox vaccine. In an interview Sunday, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla said that a second booster will be necessary to fight off more potential variants that are almost assuredly on the way. Currently, only the immunocompromised are able to receive the 4th dose. Pfizer plans to submit data to the FDA showing that the extra dose should be recommended for more people. It is necessary a 4th boost for right now, said Bourla. The protection we are getting from the 3rd. It is good enough, actually quite good for hospitalizations and deaths. It's not that good against infections, but it doesn't last very long. Bourla also says the vaccine could be available in May for children 5 years and under. Again, we were supposed to be done with this already. Now, looking into this, looking into the draconian measures, and looking into the fact that Pfizer needs to get more money because they've seen a lot of their stuff get cut off at this point, they're still going to tell you, after the papers came out, that you need to get another booster. You need to get another one of their products. I'm sorry, at this point, I don't trust you anymore. I don't. A little bit of news out of my state here. In Wisconsin, a political battle of the 2020 vote still rages. Well, I hate to tell you this over here in Madison, especially since I didn't vote for any of my local offices here because I don't agree with any of them. But I'm going to tell you right now, you need to stop that shit. You need to give up on this shit. Stop. The election is over. The House Plant Chief is going to be in there no matter what happens. Definitely go in and look and see what happened and make laws appropriate to it, but stop trying to overturn the election. It's never going to happen. From Bill Whitaker. The primary season is already underway for this fall's midterms, and according to a CBS News poll, 61% of voters say they want politicians to address the voting process. Former President Trump insists voter fraud cost him re-election. See, and that's very misleading for CBS to say too, because, you see the headline, "The battle still rages over the 2020 election." From the start of this first paragraph, it sounds like the battle is raging over the 2022 election. 61% of voters say they want politicians to address the voting process. Former President Trump insists voter fraud cost him re-election. Despite having lost more than 60 lawsuits, no, lawsuits never getting taken up. Challenging the process, nearly three-quarters of Republicans believe that Biden's victory was illegitimate, even though it was the safest and most secure election in history, honk honk. And Republican-controlled legislatures in battleground states, including Arizona, Florida, and Georgia, have rewritten election laws. Republicans say it's in order to make voting more secure. Democrats say it's to make it harder for the traditional base to cast ballots. Perhaps no state is more contentious than Wisconsin, which Biden won by less than 1% of the vote, where the battle is raging over voting rights and wrongs. Bill Whitaker, was the 2020 vote in Wisconsin clean and fair? Kathy Bernier, yes. The election was not stolen from Trump. No, the election was not stolen from Trump. Kathy Bernier is a Wisconsin Republican state senator, told us widespread fraud is all but impossible in Wisconsin. Okay, I'm sure. How is it you can say that with such certainty and conviction? Because I know the process. A diehard neocon, Bernier began her political career overseeing elections as clerk in Chippewa County. That's where I know that name from. Today she chairs the State Senate Committee on Elections and calls the talk of voter fraud a charade that will hurt Republicans at the polls. So, realistically, like I said, it is time to sit down and figure out what actually happened here in the state, if this was a legitimate thing, or if things like vote in the park, democracy in the park, and drop-off boxes that were, for the most part, unattended, caused some of this as well. But they're going to continue to go back and fight this, and they're going to come back to try to tell you that this was all about the 2020 election and not about what's going forward in the future. From the Hill, Biden warns Democrats it'll be a sad 2 years if Republicans take control of Congress. And we actually have the clip. Biden issued a warning to his party about the possibility of Republicans taking control of Congress in the upcoming midterm elections during the remarks to the Democratic National Committee members on Thursday evening. He encouraged Democrats to use the same work ethic, enthusiasm, and energy they had in the 2020 election as they seek to keep control of the House and Senate and add seats, honk honk. If we don't do that, it's going to be a sad, sad 2 years. Think about Republicans if they can control Congress these last 2 years, the president said to members of their winter meeting in Washington, D.C. Based. Let's listen. Oh, volume.
I believe we have a record to be.
Back it up.
I believe we have a record to be incredibly proud of. An agenda the public strongly supports if you look at the polling data. A message that resonates. Build a better America. Now we've got to do the work. And I've seen what you can do. I saw it in 2020. Nothing was going to stop you then. We can't let anything stop us now. We need to bring some real determination, the same work ethic, the same enthusiasm. And if we do that, we're going to keep the House and keep the Senate and add seats. And by the way, if we don't do that, it's going to be a sad, sad 2 years.
Did you hear that person in the background? 4 more years! Oh, we can't go back and clip it again. Dude, that dude doesn't have 4 years left, 4 more years left in him. The president listed the Ukraine as an issue for Democrats to run on, touting the unity of NATO and the U.S. against Russia's ongoing invasion into its neighboring country and saying that Russian President Vladimir Putin has failed to divide Democrats and Republicans. He also noted the record high price of gas and called it Putin's price hike, rhetoric that the White House has been using to discuss the gas prices since Biden announced a ban on Russian energy imports earlier this week, but no address on what happened for the year that went prior to Putin's invasion, and the $1.50 that gas rose through that. But don't worry, guys, it's going to be a sad, sad 2 years if Republicans take back control. Speaking of midterms, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy endorses Liz Cheney challenger and continuing fallout over Trump. From Dylan Wells and Ledyard King. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy on Thursday endorsed Harriet Hageman, a primary challenger to Liz Cheney of Wyoming, in the latest skirmish between Cheney and her party over forceful criticism of former President Trump. Once a defender of Cheney, McCarthy's endorsement of Hageman is the clearest sign that he wants to send the former Vice President Cheney's daughter packing. Well, yeah, you should have done that long ago. Can you imagine if Bush and Cheney were in office right now? How bad the war would be, or the other Bush, by the way, who probably honk would have been reelected had he been able to come back out and pull off whatever little bit of a win that he had. I mean, Hillary would have fucking curb stomped Jeb, but he would have lost with grace. But can you imagine right now if he was the president, another Bush in the White House, where we would be at right now? McCarthy's move is more remarkable because until less than a year ago, Cheney was a rising Republican star and GOP conference chair, a leadership position that she lost because of her anti-Trump stance and that she gained for no reason other than the fact that she is Richard Cheney's daughter. After spending time with Harriet, it's readily apparent that she will always listen and prioritize the needs of local communities and is focused on tackling our nation's biggest problems. McCarthy told the Federalist, "I look forward to serving with Harriet for years to come." Yes, and that's the big problem. It's not necessarily the agreements that go on in Congress. And I hate the fact that our Congress has moved to the point that the vast majority of what we see from them is what they do for party rather than what they do for their constituents. Nobody in Wyoming wanted Liz Cheney to vote the way that she did. Nobody in Wyoming wanted that except for Liz Cheney. And when her constituents said, "Hey, if you do this, we're going to primary you," she did it anyway. This is a situation of her own doing. It is. I endorse Liz Cheney's challenger. Anybody to get a Cheney out of there. Anything to get another war pig, war hawk fucking Republican out of that office. Get rid of them. Get rid of them all. Graham, you go too. Somebody primary that dude. Beto, back in the news. Beto becomes the first prominent Democrat to flip against CRT. "I don't think CRT should be taught in our schools, brah."
And I think you and I probably are both on the same page as well. We don't see CRT being taught in our schools right now. It's a course that is taught in law school. No, I don't think it should be taught in our schools, yeah. And I think you and I probably are both on the same page as well. We don't see...
Yep, the focus groups came in. And it's not popular. Well, why would you want to outlaw it? It's not even happening. Okay, so we can just outlaw it and it's not going to change anything. No, the kids have to know how bad their white privilege is. The focus groups are in, and you can't run and win. And Virginia showed that too, by the way. You can't run on CRT, and Republicans can win on education right now. Which, again, is a little bit weird to me. But apparently it can happen. Let's grab one from The Blaze. Beto O'Rourke calls Greg Abbott an oligarch and a thug and suggests a statewide gun buyback in Texas. Godspeed. Let me know how that works out for you. From Samuel Mangold Lennett. I mean, of course, first thing you've got to do is be able to get in to governance in Texas. And I think that's a hurdle that you're not going to clear, no matter how much you dream about it or eat the magic dirt. O'Rourke compared current Texas Governor Greg Abbott to a Russian oligarch and proposed a statewide gun buyback program during a Saturday evening speaking engagement in South by Southwest. KView 10, a local ABC affiliate, reported that O'Rourke was the headline speaker at the event hosted by CEO and co-founder of the Texas Tribune, Evan Smith. Smith asked O'Rourke, who would become known for launching a string of quixotic political campaigns, why he was running for a major political office for the third time. O'Rourke said, "Bro, because I have this extraordinary opportunity to join amazing people in the service to my state and the country. Yet there's no higher honor. I am grateful for the opportunity, and I love the fact that we're in this race right now, and you want to see me race on a skateboard? I can do that too, brah." Smith subsequently asked O'Rourke about his opposition in the gubernatorial campaign and current Texas Governor Greg Abbott. O'Rourke responded by calling him an authoritarian, brah. He said, "I just had the chance to meet with the ambassador from the EU, brah. And we talked about the fact that you're seeing the continued rise of authoritarians and thugs across the world, and we have our own one right here in the state of Texas." Smith responded by asking him, "Greg Abbott is a thug in your mind?" To which O'Rourke responded, "He's a thug, brah. He's an authoritarian. Let me make the case not only to this guy, to his own incompetence to keep the lights on in the energy capital of the planet last February. But when people like Kelsey Warren and other energy company CEOs made more than $11 billion in profit over the 5 days, selling gas 200 times the going rate, not only did he claw back those illegal profits, but he's taking millions of dollars in payoffs from the same people, brah." Yeah, well, you know what? Good luck. How long is this clip? No. That's an hour. We're not going to do that. From the Daily Wire. Abortion is the crux of 2022 elections, major pro-life group predicts, and they're marshalling all forces to win this battle. No, it's the economy, stupid. But you know, this does go on to the religious conservatism of the Daily Wire, the fact that they would post this and they actually believe this. It's not. In fact, I would go back and offer the same kind of argument that we had going into 2016. When so many people were saying that abortion was the key issue of the 2016 election. Because they're going to try to put this up there to hide this from the fact that, you know, a lot of their people still suck economically, both sides of the aisle. Because they still want to tax away from you and use your money to do things for other people instead of just letting you keep your own money. Now, I will also give in to the fact that our economy was really good in 2019, and that would have been the time to start talking about the abortion argument. I said back in 2016 that I don't know why so many of these Christian conservatives are so focused on abortion right now, when at the time, it was just at the very, very beginning of the recovery, where people were just starting to go back to work, but employment was still at 8% in 2016. Get everybody back to work first, and then once we get everybody back to work and everybody's making good money, and people are begging for people because it's a seller's market for labor, once we get back to that position, then we can go start having the argument about gay marriage and abortion. And given what we're seeing right now with the war in the Ukraine, gas back up to $4+ a gallon, and an economic stagflation that just will not move. Yeah, let's focus on the economy first, and then we'll go talk about abortion once we get everybody back to work. But let's see what they have to say over at the Daily Wire. One of the most powerful pro-life organizations in the country is marshaling all its resources to combat abortion extremism heading into the 2022 midterm elections, and its leaders predict that the life issue will be a much bigger deal than expected. The context is historic. Susan B. Anthony List President Marjorie Dannenfelser said in a phone interview with the Daily Wire. The midterm election falls in the shadow of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, the Supreme Court case involving a 2018 Mississippi law banning abortions after 15 weeks, addressing whether bans on abortion before fetal viability are constitutional. It directly challenges the Supreme Court's monumental Roe v. Wade decision. Should Roe be overturned, the power to decide abortion laws would be returned to the states. We're looking at a decision that's been in the making for almost 50 years and has only grown, not diminished over time, Dannenfelser said, and it's possible that culminating this summer, right before the midterms, a moment where the Republican Party's come very far in terms of its embrace of the issue. Here's the other side of this. For whatever reason, the demonic cult of the left has decided that child murder is the top of their platform. I don't know the rules, I don't make the rules. I don't know that I would pull this issue up at this time. Now, of course, the religious is always going to come back and fight for this. I am anti-abortion, but I don't want the government to get involved in it because they suck at everything. They really do. But I'm telling you right now, if you claw back and reverse abortion law right now, you will have every single last human being in the world out there to vote because they have this incessant need to kill their own children. And they believe that if Roe is overturned, that means that it will become inaccessible and absolutely illegal in all 50 states because they don't know how the law works. And they will be out in force to come back and do so. From Newsweek, Trump rally without Nikki Haley shows GOP rifts in 2022 and 2024. That's probably the best decision you made. Have a rally without a war hawk in the middle of a country that's trying to get us into war. From Natalie Colarossi. Former President Trump is headed to South Carolina for his latest rally on Saturday, but notably absent from the event will be ex-ambassador to the UN and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who was once considered a close ally of his. Yeah, that was probably his first mistake. Trump will take the stage at the Florence Regional Airport at 7 p.m., in part to attack the state's GOP rep, Tom Rice and Nancy Mace, and issue support to their opponents. However, the rally will mark a notable divide within the GOP since Haley moved to endorse Mace early last month. The former governor, who is also weighing a 2024 presidential bid, God no, threw her support behind Mace on February 7th, which was just 2 days before Trump announced he would emphatically back her primary challenger, Katie Arrington. Her endorsement of Mace has largely been viewed as yet another example of a fraction within the GOP seeking to move itself away from Trump's influence. Since the selfie fest, Haley has deliberately distanced herself from the former president at times. If you want to win, and again, we're looking at the fact, it's actually hard to come back and look at this, because there are major Republicans at this point who are coming back into the warmongering aspect of this. And I've said at numerous points, this is the reason I can't be a Republican, because once they don't have the leadership of their religious figure, they default back into the pro-war stance. And they go after whoever wants to go back and bomb all the brown kids, but still has an R next to their name because they don't want to be out there killing on them their babies. For all the faults that he had, and there were many, for all the problems that the Trump presidency had, for a while, for a short period of time, He made war a dirty word among Republicans. That is the one point of the presidency that I miss. From the New York Post. Saudi Arabia kills 81 in its largest mass execution ever recorded. But hey, let's go buy some gas from them. From Jesse O'Neill. Saudi Arabia killed 81 alleged criminals Saturday, the largest mass execution recorded on the kingdom's modern history. Those who were killed have been convicted of a range of crimes, including murder, belonging to militant groups like Al-Qaeda or backing Yemen's Houthi rebels. The executions were announced by a state-run Saudi press agency, which did not specify where they occurred, the significance of the timing, or the method of killing, although the kingdom typically beheads convicts. Most of the slain prisoners were Saudis, the agency said. 7 Yemenis and 1 Syrian were also killed. The accused were provided with the right to an attorney and were guaranteed the full rights under Saudi law, according to the judicial process, which found them guilty of committing multiple heinous crimes that left large numbers of civilians and law enforcement officers dead, the Saudi press agency said. Now, this goes along, and this is Saudi law. We can't go over there and change this. But what I find most funny about this is the Biden admin, which is supported by mostly non-death penalty proponents, anti-death penalty proponents, death penalty opponents, one might say. Are all cheering for the fact that Biden wants to go over and buy oil from people who just did an 81-person mass execution by beheading. That sounds consistent. From the Blaze. Woman, 21, lured Las Vegas man to a motel, blindfolded him, stabbed the victim in the neck as revenge against U.S. drone strike that killed Iranian leader. Police. From Paul Saka. A woman is accused of stabbing a man in the neck on March 5th at a hotel near Las Vegas. The 21-year-old woman said she committed the stabbing as a revenge for the 2020 U.S. drone strike that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, according to the police. Nika Nikubin faces charges of attempted murder, 2 counts of battery with a deadly weapon, a burglary of a business, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. She's being held on $60,000 bail. Nikubin allegedly met a man on the dating site Plenty of Fish, then lured him to the Sunset Station Hotel and Casino in Henderson, Nevada. While inside the hotel room, the couple began engaging in sexual activity. Nikubin put a blindfold on the man, then turned the lights off. Several minutes later, the victim felt a pain in the side of his neck. KLAS reported she reportedly pulled out a knife from her purse and attacked the unsuspecting victim. The man pushed Nikubin off him and then ran out of the 14th floor hotel room to call the police around 10:30 that night. Nikubin also ran out of the room and told the hotel employee that she had just stabbed a man. Well, if you're going to do the crime, own up to it, I guess. Nikubin allegedly told authorities at the Henderson Police Department that she stabbed the man as revenge for the death of Qasem Soleimani, who was killed during a U.S. Air Force drone strike on January 3rd, 2020. Soleimani was the leader of Iran's elite Quds force. So, my biggest question right now, everyone, I might actually be tempted by that, but my biggest question right now is, did this guy actually have a connection to the Soleimani killing? Is there an actual connection there, or is this just, I randomly wanted to kill a guy in the U.S. because Soleimani, forever? Was this guy even a Republican? Was he even a Trump supporter? I have no idea. From 9 and 10 News. Pinko Pox delays federal trial and plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer. The trial for 4 men accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Whitmer was postponed until at least Thursday because an essential participant tested positive for the pink coat pox. U.S. District Judge Robert Jonker ordered the delay on Sunday. Undercover agents, informants, 2 co-conspirators who pled guilty prior to a trial were expected to testify in the coming weeks as prosecutors build their case against Brandon Caserta, Barry Croft, Adam Fox, and Daniel Harris. The trial could last more than a month. In testimony last week, prosecutors who sought to counter defense claims that the 4 were entrapped by the FBI into joining a kidnapping conspiracy that wouldn't have occurred to them otherwise. Prosecutors laid the groundwork of their case by calling the FBI investigators who explained how they obtained covert recordings and social media posts. They entered some of that key evidence. On Thursday, jurors heard for the first time recording one of the defendants specifically talk about kidnapping the governor. Barry Croft Jr. could be heard saying that there should be a quick, precise grab of Governor Whitmer. Yeah, see, the problem with this is, again, there's... If you have a group of 13 people and 9 of them are FBI agents, I have a hard time believing and accepting that this was just a grassroots thing that came up out of nowhere. I really do. I'd like to see more about this trial. Unfortunately, a lot of this was covered up by the Ukraine news, but the testimony is out there. Maybe KTZed knows a little bit more about this. We'll talk to her later on tonight about this, because I'm going to put this in the lightning round and we'll see what she's seen off of this. From The Blaze, New York Times reporter criticizes colleagues traumatized by January 6th selfie fest and hitting camera sting. From Chris Pandolfo. Former newspaper New York Times reporter Matthew Rosenberg called the media coverage of the January 6th selfie fest overblown and criticized his colleagues' response to the events of the day in a hidden camera sting released by Project Veritas. Rosenberg, national security correspondent for the New York Times, a former newspaper, extensively reported on the riot and accused the former president and his supporters of using a furious array of rumor, innuendo, partial facts, and outright lies to create alternative narratives, making excuses for the violent mob that trespassed at the Capitol building. But in excerpts from a recorded conversation with one of Veritas' undercover journalists, Rosenberg admitted the leftists spun a narrative too in the opposite direction. Oops. Let's listen.
Matthew Rosenberg is a Pulitzer Prize-winning national security correspondent for the New York Times. In multiple meetings with one of our undercover journalists, Rosenberg reveals a lot about the inner workings and inner turmoil at the Times. For starters, he doesn't hesitate to undermine his own paper's coverage of the events that took place in our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, and chides corporate media's reaction, or in his own words, overreaction.
Like, I think you could tell how much fun we had on January 6th.
Oh, that's great. Are you allowed to have that much fun on January 6th? Aren't you supposed to be mourning?
I know. So they're traumatized. But like, I mean, all these colleagues who are in the building, a little younger, who's like, oh my God, this is so scary. I'm like, oh,
Is that really the vibe there?
From them. I'm like, come on. Like, it's not the kind of place I can say tell somebody to man up, but I kind of want to. You're like, dude, come on. Like, you were not in any danger. Got in Zola, got in Adam, Goldman, from Sabrina Tavernese, a bunch of photographers. Then there were people inside the Capitol.
Yeah, who was inside?
Little dweebs who keep going on about their trauma. I'm like, guys, shut the enough. I guess it was scarier.
Did they write about it? Oh God, please tell me who so I can read.
I don't know if they wrote about their trauma. This chick named Emily Cochran and this guy named Nick Fandos. They're both like in their 20s.
Nick Fandos?
Fandos. They covered, Nick doesn't anymore, they covered comments. So they're congressional reporters. The story I got sucked into doing was like, I do investigative stuff. I usually do like longer term things. But I got back to work on Monday. And the managing editor had a great idea that he could have had a month ago, which was like, we should really, me and a colleague had done like a very like long 7,000 word story last year in February about like kind of the big lie about the Stop the Steal campaign, which was a very organized campaign. It wasn't like an organic thing. He's like, can we do like part 2 of that, like what's going on in the years since January 6th, kind of like memory holing it, like making it it's no big deal? Yeah, we can do that. It's a little quick turnaround. So we've been doing the last few days. That's the story. But it's in a meeting. And I'm like, one of the issues here is that, like on the Fox News of the world and elsewhere, is that the left's overreaction, the left's reaction to it in some places was so over the top that it gave the opening the right needed to start introducing the idea of, well, these people are out of control. Like, it's not a big deal as they're making it. Because they were making it too big a deal. They were making this an organized thing that it wasn't. And that gave the opening for the lunatics on the right to be like, oh, well, nothing happened here. It was just a peaceful bunch of tourists, And it's like, but nobody wants to hear that.
Not as big of a deal as the media made it out to be?
So, I mean, that in and of itself is fairly damning. But of course, what do we expect from any of this? We look at this, and this is supposed to be the worst thing since 9/11. And you'll notice, by the way, since the Ukraine thing popped up, that has fallen off too. Nobody wants to talk about that. And I mean, if it's true as presented, this is a bigger deal than anything out of the Ukraine and anything else. And yet they don't want to talk about it coming up into the midterms. It's focus grouped. Nobody cares anymore. All right, just a few more here, then we'll head out of here for the day. From Insider, Amazon is temporarily relocating employees from its downtown Seattle office following a rise in violent crime. I'm sorry, you don't want to be somewhere close to a Chaz or a Chop? Amazon is temporarily relocating employees from its downtown Seattle office amid an increase in violent crime in the area. An Amazon spokesperson told Insider by email, given recent incidents near its 3rd and Pine, we're providing employee security at the location with alternative office space elsewhere. The building is not closed, however. The spokesperson added, we're hopeful that conditions will improve and that we will be able to bring employees back to this location when it's safe to do so. The office is at 300 Pine Street, about half mile from its main headquarters on 7th Avenue. As reported by Como News, shootings, stabbings, and other crimes are increasing in the area. Michael Del Bianco, a 15-year-old boy, was shot and killed at the intersection where Amazon's office is located on March 2nd, per Newsweek. About 1,800 Amazon employees are assigned to the office, according to the spokesperson, but many of them had been working remotely due to the pandemic. According to the information from the Seattle Police Department's Twitter account, there have been at least 3 shootings, 2 stabbings, and 1 carjacking in the area since February 21st. I'm sorry, I gotta laugh at that one a little bit. And it blows for the people who have lost their lives, the people that have gotten hurt, but I mean, this is supposed to be this big, happy place where everybody does well and everybody has a good job and people love working for Amazon, unless they're working at the factory floor, of course, because then they hate it. And we get this, and a rise in crime during the Biden admin. I'm sorry. We got one more here from NPR. And this, of course, is at the bottom of the show because I knew that nobody actually gave a flying fuck. But make sure you donate because they still need this. Obama has tested positive for COVID. From Rena Torchinsky. Former President Barack Obama has said he has tested positive for pinko pox. Hold on. Let me see if I can find a sounder for this. No, they don't have just the sounder. But I can tell you, Barack Obama has tested positive for COVID-19. And then? Like, seriously. I didn't even want to put this on here. But I thought for sure if I missed this, if I skipped this, somebody in the live chat or the comment section would say, well, what about Barack Obama testing positive for COVID-19? Nobody cares. And then? I wish you a long and healthy life, Barack Obama. I hope nothing bad happens to you. Triple jabbed, triple vaxxed, booster, boosted, face mask. Well, no, the face mask that you didn't have to wear because it was your birthday party that nobody else had to wear around there. Your lavish birthday party. But seriously, it's over. Nobody cares. From the Daily Wire, Amy Schumer suggests that disgraced superstar comedians shouldn't be allowed to come back. Well, there's a free market that decides that, Miss Schumer. The free market that's denied you and relegated you out to tampon commercials. And the free market wants to hear Dave Chappelle. He wants to hear Chappelle show Dave Chappelle, it wants to hear Chappelle show Dave Chappelle, not the current Dave Chappelle, but they want to hear Dave Chappelle, not you. Superstar comedian, Amy Schumer suggests that disgraced comedians from the #MeToo era shouldn't be allowed to come back. It's really all been sad and disappointing, the 40-year-old comedian reported The Hollywood Reporter in a piece published on Wednesday. I don't think that coercion and the taking advantage of the masturbating in front of people is cool, and I don't think that those guys should be allowed to come back, she added, without naming specific people she thought shouldn't be allowed to come back on stage. In 2017, the disgraced comedian Louis C.K. admitted that the sexual misconduct claims against him were true, reported TMZ at the time. These stories are true, the comedian shared in a statement. At the time, I said to myself, what I did was okay because I never showed a woman my dick without asking first, which was also true. But what I learned later in life, too late, is that when you have the power over another person, asking them to look at your dick isn't a question, he added. It's a predicament for them, and the power I had over these women is that they admired me, and I wielded that power irresponsibly. Louis, don't get a big ego off of this. You're a second-rate C-list celebrity. That's actually funny. And again, the free market will decide who gets to come back and who doesn't. While Schumer is known for her raunchy pussy jokes, it's raunchy, it's rancid, trust me. As she characterizes them, she'll be taking a couple risks at the annual award show on Sunday, March 27th. However, she said it's still a work in progress. Yeah, because she's supposed to host the Oscars, and you know what? I haven't seen the Oscars in probably a good 7 to 10 years, and I don't intend to now. When was the last time I watched an actual award show? I was with a girl, I know that. But just another unfunny thing that Amy Schumer has said. Hot take, I actually thought that Amy Schumer was funny. Now, a lot of people have said that these were stolen jokes that she was telling at the time. I don't know, I couldn't verify that, but she still had the delivery, the ability to do so. I thought she was funny when she first came out, but the more socially active she got, the less funny she got. I will come right out and say that. From Politico, Texas court scuttles key lawsuit over state's abortion ban. From Josh Gerstein and Alice Miranda Holstein. Texas Supreme Court appeared to slam the door Friday on a federal lawsuit abortion providers in the state have pursued for months in a bid to have the state's unusual, privately enforced abortion ban declared unconstitutional. The unanimous ruling from Texas highest court cuts off for now, abortion rights advocates' ability to use federal courts to halt enforcement of the law that went into effect in September and allows private citizens to sue abortion providers and anyone who helps a patient access the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy. The Supreme Court decision, however, does not foreclose other legal maneuvers abortion providers are using to challenge the law, like the state court suits against the anti-abortion activists and the group considered likely to try to wield the state's statute to discourage abortions. However, abortion rights advocates have been relying on federal courts as a more efficient path to get definitive ruling against the law. The decision Friday effectively closes off the route for such a challenge that the U.S. Supreme Court left open in December when it rejected an effort to block state court clerks and judges from accepting private lawsuits under the new law. The ruling said abortion providers might be able to press their own litigation against the state medical licensing officials because of an argument that they have a role in enforcing the statute, which actually would work as well. Now, as I mentioned on numerous occasions, I don't like this law. I don't like the way that it's written. I like the idea because of a situation that I was in for myself that I don't want to talk about very much on this. I like the idea, but the people involved should be an aggrieved party. There shouldn't be any room for somebody who has no connection to the situation to do the same thing. And that's the way that I see it. Now, you're the father. The one went out and aborted your child without telling you, and then told you after the fact. You're an aggrieved party. You put the thing there. You decided that you wanted to be a father. And if you didn't want to be a father, you shouldn't have done it. The aggrieved party aspect to it, that works for me. But to have anybody or their brother to be able to come out and do this for an abortion that has no tangential connection to them whatsoever, I don't think that's right, yo. I don't. But it stands for right now, so we'll see what happens with that. Two more. Another one from Texas here. 27,000 Texas primary ballots flagged under new election laws. From John Rigolizzo. More than 27,000 mail-in ballots in the Texas primary elections were flagged for rejection under the state's new election integrity law, according to a report. The Associated Press reported Thursday that the flagged ballots affected both Republicans and Democrats who voted in Texas' first in the nation primary last week, totaling about 17% of mail-in votes in 120 countries. The 27,000 number is an initial figure and is expected to drop significantly. Still, the Associated Press notes that the ballot rejection rate will likely be far more than the rejection rate of the 2020 election, where less than 1% of mail-in ballots were rejected. The Associated Press noted that voters were given until Monday to fix the discrepancies in their ballots, which in most cases, simply providing identification, which is required by law. Voters are required to list an ID number, either a driver's license or social security number, which matches the county record for each voter on the ballot envelope. If the ballot is rejected, upon receipt, voters can use the state's ballot tracking system or go to the county election office to add an ID number, or they can vote using a provisional ballot on election day. County election officials told the Associated Press they're working hard to contact voters whose ballots have been rejected, with many making contact in time to fix the discrepancies. A final count of rejected ballots is expected in the coming days. The Texas law requires counties to publish a reconciliation report after the election, which includes the total number of ballots, mail ballots, and how many were flagged or rejected. So, as far as this goes, I don't know if this is a honkening or something else to go off of this. Again, this is a primary. This isn't the general election, but this is also a good time to come back out and figure out where the problems are and how to get people in and what to do if there is a problem with this. But it's also telling that 17%, 27,000, had a failure in them. Honk, honk. I wonder how many of them only had... Well, no, this is a primary again, so this would be for, I believe, your state rep is on board for this primary. Gubernatorial, obviously, for primary. But Yeah, honkity honk honk. But that's what we have from that. And the last one, before we head out of here for the day. Thought you guys would enjoy this. I enjoyed it. From the Blaze, prehistoric vampire squid known for sucking, named after Biden. From Phil Shiver. President Brandon had quite the honor bestowed upon him recently when an extremely rare, primitive prehistoric ancestor of the vampire squid with a soft body and 10 sucker arms was named after him. After being dug up in the 80s in Bear Gulch, Montana, Silipsimopodi bideni, as it's now called, reportedly sat in the drawer at the Royal Ontario Museum in Canada for decades before one curious scientist decided to take a closer look. Upon re-examining the specimen, that scientist, Christopher Whalen, discovered what appeared to be 10 preserved arms with small suckers attached to them. Whalen, a paleontologist with the American Museum of Natural History in Manhattan, New York, was shocked by the discovery. "That's incredibly rare," he told the New York Times. The 10 appendages, as opposed to 8, likely gave the species an advantage as a predator when allegedly roamed the ocean 328 million years ago. The suckers helped grasp rocks and other slippery surfaces. Upon further evaluation, Whalen came to believe the fossilized creature was not just another cephalopod, but the oldest known ancestor of vampiropods, which includes the vampire squids and octopi. Apparently inspired by President Biden's ascent to the presidency in 2021, Whalen decided to name the primitive squid-like creature after him. "I wanted to somehow acknowledge the moment in a way that was more positive and forward-looking," he said, according to The Independent. "I was encouraged by the plans the president put forward to counter anthropogenic climate change and his general sentiments that politicians should listen to a scientist." Whalen detailed the new species in a scientific paper published by Nature magazine Tuesday, but submitted at the time of Biden's inauguration, noting the genus name was derived from the Greek word for prehensile foot. Yeah, all that I have to say about that is the prehistoric squid is known for sucking. And now it's named after Biden. And that makes me smile. Alright. And with that, we're going to finish out the show here with one of our Ferengi rules of acquisition. I hope that our Monday shows just don't keep going this long. Because I know that we've had people pop in, pop back out here. What are we even at right now? 2:25. This was never supposed to be more than a half an hour show either. A few headlines. And out the door, so you guys can get to work. That's what this was always supposed to be. And now they just keep pouring the Ukraine. That's been the killer of this, is the Ukrainian stuff. But let's get in here. Let's grab the next rule of acquisition, and let's head out of here for the day. All right. So we did the 58th rule of acquisition last week. There's no substitute for success, and there is no substitute for success. And today we look in on the 59th rule of acquisition. Free advice is seldom cheap. This is from DS9 episode, Rules of Acquisition. And I can see where free advice is seldom cheap. Free advice is almost never cheap. Whereas, first and foremost, you're usually expected. If somebody comes in and says, "Hey, let me give you a little bit of free advice. Hey, let me tell you what you can do better for this." The first thing that you have to see is that person usually expects something back from you. That person is typically looking for something in return. "Hey, I can show you how to do this. I can show you how to do that." "Oh, well, what do you want in return?" "Oh, well, you just, give me a position in your company, put me on as an advisor, and let me put my name to this or something, or give me some sort of product or something else." But the other side of this is if it's actually free advice, if there's nothing in return for this, then it's probably not all that good. Somebody come on, "Oh, I don't need anything. Just, hey, go back out and do this." You get your free advice, and everything falls apart in your face. That's usually more where free advice is on the aspect. You've got the idea that you could possibly have somebody want to exchange something for you, but typically when you're getting free advice, it's that somebody is either trying to sabotage you or doesn't actually know what they're doing. They think they know what they're doing, but they don't actually know what they're doing. So that is one to keep in mind as we go forward. A lot of people coming into the midterms are going to try to give you free advice. Find out the facts, draw your own conclusions, figure out what works best for you and your family. Let's head out of here for the day. Two hours and 30 minutes. Not the longest episode we did. The last one we did hit 3 hours last week, but where's my outro music? What the fuck? There it is. So, thanks everybody for coming in and hanging out with me today as we went over the Ukraine and all the other issues of the week. I've still got my background music playing without the outro. I'll be back here later on tonight with KTZed Redemption, so come back and join for that. It's going to be a good time. We're going to be talking about the Ukraine. We're going to be talking about the oil price hikes and everything that goes along with this, and this big omnibus spending plan that just rammed through the House and Senate just in time to keep going from a government shutdown as well. Plus, we've got some really nice surprise stupidity. I think you guys all know what it is because we watched it. Well, we watch all the surprise stupidity on this channel, but we watched it before. I think you guys know what it's going to be. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a funnier surprise stupidity than some of the sadder ones. So come back and join us for that. That's going to be a time. We will see you here tonight for KTZed Redemption. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. So looking forward to seeing you here. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.